Hello and welcome. My name's Ashley Ward, and I'm fortunate enough to get to take you through this presentation and demonstration on securing container image pipelines on AWS with Prisma Cloud. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to have a look at build, ship, and run. We're going to look at using CodeBuild. So a developer, as I will be, has created a Docker file. I've got information in there. We're going to store that in code commit. We'll use CodeBuild to build that image. We're then going to push that image into a registry. We could then have triggered it to go off and run somewhere. So we could be pushing things onto EKS or ECS or anywhere like that. The point being that we're showing the platform and the benefit of using a platform like AWS, where you've got all of this detail in the one place. Now, actually going into some detail about what we'll see, we are going to build a specific image, and I'm going to jump over into my, my bash session, and we can have a look at the Docker file. We're going to see that, then go through, we'll see that it's got some vulnerabilities into it. We'll see how we can then automatically scan those and even prevent things from going through. We'll have a look at ECR, which is where those images are going to end up. And then we'll also have a quick look at the rest of Prisma Cloud, because where you'll see a lot of information is about why we think having that security platform is so important. But we'll dive into detail of one little part, and then we can explode out to the other areas. Okay, let's jump over to a nice shell prompt that I've got here. So what have I got? I've got a nice simple Docker file. This Docker file, you can see I've got from HTTPD, which is Apache. This is pulled from Docker Hub. I've specified a particular version that I want to use. That'd be common practice. And then also as part of my image that I'm creating, I am copying in a configuration file, and that's the HTTP configuration file. Now, the important thing about that is that it's exactly the same as what you'll see on Docker Hub. I've not done anything fancy with that. And really, for our purposes, it doesn't even matter that that's there. Okay, so what have I got? I've got, if I could type, then I have, I've got this set up in Git. I've got my Docker file there. We can see that I've got the origin is over there in code commit. So we jump over to code commit, and we can see, funnily enough, there's my files there and my repository there. If we click into this, we can see all those different files. All of that's great. It's the same Docker file we saw, that configuration file, super. But then what we also have is this build spec file. Now the build spec file is important because that's what we're going to use. That's what tells CodeBuild what to do when we're building that up. So very quickly, we can see here that we're logging into ECR because we're going to be pushing this into ECR. We then simply just build this. We're building it with some variables that are there. The variables are you'll see we're using the latest tag each time. We're just going to keep on pushing the latest. We then do that. We've got all the account ID, again, variables that are there. And then the post part is once it's built successfully, we're just going to push that in. Now, you can also see how this is very simple. I've got a very simple image that I'm building. I've got some very simple commands there. Chances are I would probably do some tests and things in there as well. But you can see how that would expand out. Now, a thing to note is that we are only going as far as build. We're going to be going into CodeBuild and having a look at our, let's go for build history. We're not going into the deploy. We could build up a whole pipeline, but for our purposes to show for this very quick video, we're just showing the simple parts here. And you would build that up into a full pipeline to deploy onto, as we mentioned, EKS, ECS, OpenShift, whatever you have running there. So we've had this build, we've seen that it's run, we can have a quick look at this, and we can see that we have done all the things we said we were going to do. We've got that image from there, we've built it, we've got it, that's all gone through. It has succeeded, which is super. So now I should be able to jump along and go into my container registry, Elastic Container Registry, and here we have, we've got this that has run, we've got the image that's been pushed, which is super. Let's see if I have, let's cancel that. Let's go into that image, pardon me. So we've got that image, it has run, it has been pushed. We can have a look and see what, if we've got any vulnerabilities. We've got a scan, we've had a vulnerability run, we've not seen anything in here. And the reason for that is in this particular example, and I didn't pick this deliberately, but it's not a supported operating system for the scanning that happens in ECR. But if we jump over to Prisma Cloud now, we can actually have a look at this image. Now, bear in mind, what we've done, very simple, we've pulled a version from Docker Hub, we've added our configuration, and we've pushed that. Now, this is very common and would be running in companies all over the place. Even that 2.2 version of Apache that I pulled, it's very standard to have that. And we can see here that we have a critical vulnerability. Now, we actually have more than one. We've got 10 different, but they're highs. And for our purposes, we only care about the critical, for example. Okay, so we've got this. We don't want this running in production. We wouldn't have had the visibility in ECR because this is running Debian, and it's not a supported one for scanning, that Debian 8. And again, I've not created this. I've pulled this from Docker Hub, from the official Apache repo. And we have this vulnerability that's in there, which isn't something that we want. So let's put in some scanning. And to show you how easy that scanning is, what we will do is we will vim diff, and I have a scan build spec, and I have a build spec. So we'll pull this up, and now I can expand all the lines out. Okay, so what am I doing? Well, the difference that we're doing for this to put in that scanning is I am saying here, we've got it in blue, the bits that we're adding in. So after having built the image, what we're going to do is we're going to pull down the binary. We're going to contact our console, pull down the binary that we need to be able to scan it. We'll make it executable. And then we'll tell everybody that we're scanning, and we will perform a scan. Super. So that way we can let's quit out of there. So that way we know that we're doing stuff. So if I copy that scan build spec into the build spec, and I git add my new build spec, and I git commit minus m, let's do working build spec again. And then let's push that up. Okay, great. So I have now adapted that build spec to say that I want to have some scanning that's going to take place. Now I'm going to jump back over here, and let's go over to my Amazon services, and I can now go back to my code build. I can come along and I can say, right, this is the one that ran last time. Let's just start that build off. Now that's going to churn through, start that build. That's going to start running and go through. Now, all we've done is we've said we've got the same image. We've not changed that Docker file in any way. We've only introduced some scanning that's there. Now that'll tick through, and that'll take some time. But what I've also got, if I go over here to my vulnerabilities, so what we've done is we've got Prisma Cloud here, and we can actually create a rule to say, right, well, for this image, if we look at this part here that says the image, I'm targeting this to one particular image. We could have this to impact all images, but we're going to create a rule. And we've said this particular image, which is that one that we're doing, when that builds, I don't want to know about any high, medium, or low vulnerabilities. I only want to know about criticals. But I'm also putting in a failure threshold. And I'm going to say, I want builds to fail if they contain a critical vulnerability. Now, I could do a lot more advanced things in there. I can control all of my security settings from my security platform. Remember, we really like the fact that we've got AWS, and we can see in that one part there, we've got code commit, we've got code build. We could be doing the pipelines and deploy that's there. We can see everything in our registry that's there. And we believe that's really important. And the same way that for your security, you want that in a platform that can cover off all of those areas. So here I could, if I wanted, go into much detail to have exceptions or anything like that. We're not going to go to that level. All that we need to know is that we are going to block anything that has a critical vulnerability. Okay, let's come out of there and let's jump back to here, and let's see how we're going through. So we have done this stuff here. We've got we've run, so it's a lot of terminal output there that we're going to see, but we've got red here. So we've got a nice error that's come back. We've got an issue. And the issue is we have a critical vulnerability that's come in. And so we can see that we have a failed build. So now we know that we can protect things from going through our pipeline by having a simple scan that's in place. Really, really simple. So if I jump over to Prisma Cloud now and come along and say, right, let's have a nicer look at what happened there. Let's click on CI. And I can see that here's the latest one. Here's this very same one that we ran, and you can see what time I'm running this at. And if I click into it, I can see that detail, that the reason why this job was failed is because it has a critical vulnerability. And there's the details of that critical vulnerability. Super. So let's now jump back over here. Not there. Let's jump back over here. And now we will edit our Docker file. And now let's, instead of doing 2.2, we could choose, if we were doing this properly, we'd probably choose something at a specific version like 2.4 or something like that. But what I'm going to do is just say, let's do stuff with latest. So let's write and quit. Let's git add my Docker file. Let's do that. Let's git commit -m. Let's just keep going. Let's just keep it as that for the interest of time. And let's push that back up again. Super. So we've pushed that back up. We now have updated this. Let's hope that when we come back over to the right place, if we come back over here and we say, right, we've got this, we're going to go along to our build projects again. We've got all this detail here. We're going to start that build again, and that's going to tick through as soon as I tell it to start building. And that's going to tick through now. Now, hopefully that latest image doesn't have a critical vulnerability, and we'll see that go all the way through. But even so, let's cover off in the few minutes we've got remaining while that runs, a few other things that are important. So we've talked about here are the results of the image scan in CI. Now we also have the information about the registries, as we showed you before. I've got all these different ECRs that are there, and I've still got that image because we had a scan that was done when it was the old image. The other one's still being built, and we've got all that information. So even if we have things going into our ECR or another registry, if we happen to run, maybe we run our own Harbor registry or something like this, we can still keep scanning all those images regardless of how they get in there for those vulnerabilities and for the compliance. In the same way though, and we've targeted one specific area of the pipeline, the real power from a platform comes in when you look at all the areas that would be protected. So having a look and seeing that we have containers that are running and making sure that they only do the things they're meant to do. If I come along and say, well, what's happening with my serverless functions? Well, I can see now visually my serverless functions. I can see how they're called. So my trigger here being S3, and I've got all that information. When we look at all the stuff that a security platform that we provide can do, we're seeing any serverless functions, any containers, the images, the underlying hosts. Well, how's Kubernetes configured? How compliant is that? And then expanding that back to say, well, what about the actual cloud accounts? And not just saying, you know, give me a report on all the different environments and all the different accounts that I have, but actually saying, well, let's ingest flow logs and say, well, this SQL server here, what is it doing connected to the internet? Let's use common reporting mechanisms across all my accounts and cloud service providers to say what is actually going on in here and drilling into the change log for every single resource that's out there. And so just as AWS gives us this wonderful way, and look at that, we've got a success, but gives us this wonderful way of saying, here's my code, and other times we could be using GitHub or something like this, but we've got it all here in one place. We've got the code commit, we've got code build, we've got those deployments, we've got all that information there. So what's this that we're back to? This is that build that we kicked off to say, we've updated our Docker file. We're now using that latest, so there we have latest that we're pulling down. We've done that scan, and great news, we have got 0 critical vulnerabilities in there. So that means that it's passed our criteria, and it gets to go in and be pushed to ECR. And then it could be getting rules about to be pushed to other areas of our environment. So a whirlwind tour there, and hopefully we can see that we've dived into one specific area, one very detailed part of this. And that's only one piece in that whole puzzle that is cloud platform security.